Happy Monday, everybody. Okay, so we had a report come out. It wasn't great news for the Fed. The report says that inflation is actually inching back up. Now, for all of you viewers, you're not surprised at this because Greg and I have been talking about this for a while, that inflation never goes just straight up and it never goes straight down. That it goes, as it's going up, it moves up and down like this, right? And as it's going down, it goes up, down like this. So I'm not convinced that inflation really is going down. We'll have 1 month down, but that doesn't make a trend, right? Because then the next month it's up a little bit. Well, where's it going to go down? If it goes down a little bit, but not on a downward trend, we're not going downward yet. So here's the problem, is that inflation is such a tough thing it's a tough genie to put back in the bottle, right? And so there's some really geeky concepts out there when it comes to money supply, and I'm not going to go into them, but I am going to talk about some general principles that I think we can all understand, but it's almost like magic, and that's kind of how money works. So here's the thing. Did you know that we can create money out of thin air? It's true. We do it all the time. That's how finance works. We do it here locally. Okay. So now, I'm not talking about the government just printing money out of thin air, although it's almost like that. So here's how I used to be a senior financial analyst at a local credit union. We would make a lot of loans and we would take a lot of deposits. Here's how you create money. Let's say you've got $100,000. You take it to your credit union. You deposit it. Now the credit union now has $100,000. They can loan that money out. They have to keep 10% reserves, but they can loan out $90,000. So now they've got $100,000. That wasn't invented. It was just hard-earned cash, $100,000. But now the credit union loans $90,000. That but the depositor can still pull back their 90,000 because their money is still accounted for at that credit union. Meanwhile, the bank has created more money out of that 90,000. But now imagine this. Let's say somebody borrows $90,000 and instead of spending it, they say, you know what? I don't want to spend it yet. I'm just going to deposit it back in the credit union. Now the credit union has $190,000 when it only started with $100,000. That $90,000 was created. Then they can loan 90% of that. So then they loan out 81,000. And let's say somebody borrows it and deposits it right back into the credit union. They've just created all this money. And that's just one credit union here in little old Albuquerque. Imagine all the banks in Albuquerque, all the credit unions, then all the credit unions and banks in the state, then all the credit unions and banks in the nation, then all of the banks, and there are a few credit unions around the world that are doing this around the world. Then you look at the governments that are doing this at big supplies, and you create this massive amount of money that wasn't there before. Now those ebb and flow, okay? And so what the Fed is trying to do by raising rates, they're trying to slow down people borrowing money. So that $100,000 and somebody borrows it and gets 90,000 out, the Fed is trying to discourage that borrow of $90,000 to slow it down. And that's where the reduction in inflation, they're hoping that's where it comes from. But problem is when you start changing rates, it takes a long time for that trickle effect to percolate throughout the entire world. And really, we're looking at the world, not just here in Albuquerque, or we have got clients all over the world. And if you're watching us from Europe or South America, know that we're feeling your pain down there too. But it's really a global concept. And that's why when the Fed speaks very confidently about being able to lower interest rates, and Greg and I say, I'm not so sure. It's going to be harder than you think it is. I think we're actually going to see an uptick in inflation before we see really long-term declines in inflation. And it might just coincide with the election. We'll see. All right. With that, y'all have a great week. Take care.